be here during Te Wiki or Te Reo Māoris, during the week that we celebrate the Māori language. And I want to thank Mana Whenua Aroha for the warm welcome that we enjoyed. And also to Christchurch, New Zealand, Joanna Norris, thank you for your role in all of this. And of course, Christchurch City Council and your wonderful Mayor, Leanne Dalziel, for being a part of this fantastic event. And I cannot ignore two other important people. I can confirm Dame Anne Herkes is the reason I am here. So thank you, Dame Anne, for thinking of me. And my good colleague and friend, the Honourable Dr. Megan Woods, for her role in facilitating this as well today. Elected members, all of the young women from around the region who are here, and I want to particularly welcome the little babies in the room. You are always, always welcome along with your mamas, so thank you. It's very special to be here in Christchurch to mark Suffrage 125. As you all know and as you proudly bear witness, this is the home of Kate Shepherd and also Elizabeth McCombs, who was the first woman MP, and on this day celebrates the anniversary of winning the Littleton by-election in 1933. And of course, home to Mabel Howard, the first female cabinet minister. Yes. There is something about this place. And that's why I'm deeply proud to be here today, talking to all of you as the proud leader of the first country in the world where women gained the right to vote. The first country. Now, like many of you, I'm sure, I've long worn that particular first as a badge of honour. As a young woman travelling overseas, I'd make sure all my international friends knew that women here were the first to gain the right to vote. It was a story that connected me to trailblazing wahine toa of the past and women I wanted to be connected to. And it was a story which I've always felt helped our country earn its credentials as one of the unique place in the world that has a history of doing the right and fair thing. Lately, as I've prepared for several suffrage events, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the women who fought for that precious right. 1 in 5 women back then signed the petition that compelled Parliament to enshrine our right to vote in law on the 19th of September. Who were these ordinary women, so-called? With a simple act of bravery and defiance, became extraordinary in their own right. Now, of course, we know about Kate Shepherd, a local hero, who presented the petition in Parliament, wresting the right to vote from the very reluctant Dick Seddon. But what of those 25,519 women who signed the petition along with Kate? Now, as we celebrate 125 years of suffrage, it's easy to reflect on that time with a sense of nostalgia and imagine that there was something particularly extraordinary about the woman back then. Many families will carry stories passed down through the generations of great aunts and grandmothers who signed the petition. There'll be stories of women who went to amazing lengths to vote, women who walked miles to get a chance to sign the petition, women who took a leap of faith, risked their standing in their community, their marriages in some cases, to put their name on a document with no guarantee it would lead to success at all. Now, when we look through old documents, we can see these ordinary women, dressmakers, farmers, writers, shopkeepers, servants, mothers, pockets of signatories, all came from the same street. I can just imagine their thrill as they set off together to sign that petition. They were ordinary women, but each was extraordinary in their own way. Take, for instance, Christina Henderson. Christina, like Kate Shepherd, was from right here in Canterbury. She was known as a serious woman with strong religious beliefs and equally strong socialist sympathies. She was born in Melbourne in 1861, the second of 9 children of Alice Connolly and her husband Daniel Henderson. Now, Christina's mother had been a governess before she was married, and teaching was a career that Christina would later take up after the family moved to New Zealand. Christina worked at Christchurch Girls High School from the year of her father's death in 1886 till her retirement from teaching in 1912. There she rose through the ranks to become acting lady principal for a time, before the Board of Governors considered her too radical to be appointed permanently. Christina was indeed radical. In fact, she had all sorts of radical ideas. Along with her belief that women should be able to vote, she also believed in equal pay for equal work. She was paid half that of male teachers, while supporting her entire family at the time. Her views on fair pay, and on men in general, were summed up by this quote. Quote, "It is quite true that a woman manages to live on less than a man because her wants are fewer. But it is equally true that her wants are fewer because her earnings are less." Christina went on to join the National Council of Women and fought and won other radical rights for women, such as the right to serve as police, to be members of parliament, jurors and justices of the peace. Christina became a justice of the peace herself in 1928. Now, Christina's just one story among 25,518 others. Stories of ordinary women, which through simple acts of courage and determination turned out to be extraordinary. I'll tell you one more. This is a story of a woman who in the 1870s made a name for herself as a walker. Walking, I hear you gasp. Well, to be fair, in those days it was called being a pedestrian, and it was the sporting domain of men. That it was until in 1872 a young woman by the name of Catherine embarked on the enormous journey to New Zealand, aged just 19. Now, being a sprightly and sensible woman, she managed to snag herself a dapper young man named Joseph on the journey. Now, Joseph wasn't just a 30-year-old railway plate slayer from Berkshire, he was a pedestrian. Now, the most famous pedestrians at that time was Captain Barclay Allardyce, who in Newmarket, London, managed to walk 1,000 miles in 1,000 hours by walking 1 mile every hour without fail. It was a feat that Joseph tried to replicate when he hit New Zealand shores. Now, the remarkable thing wasn't that he tried, it was that Catherine tried with him. A petite 44 kgs. Catherine decided that in Joseph's break, she would take to the field walking 1/2 mile every hour. Now, the novelty was almost too much, in particular her very neat walking costume caught the eye of the local newspaper. It featured bloomers, a high-neckled ruffled top complete with pearls, and high-top leather boots. Now, you may ask how I know that. Well, basically because an image of her in her neat pedestrian garb was sent to the British weekly Illustrated Sporting and Dramatic News, which is basically the version then of Sports Illustrated. Now, not only did they publish it, they included the quote of a supporter and local legend that she was, quote, the best bit of puck that ever wore petticoats. Now, while her husband's pedestrian career was somewhat plagued by poor attendance and bad debts, Catherine was a groundbreaker. 4 years after arriving on New Zealand shores, she was setting records here. In 1876, what was then the City Hall of Auckland filled out with a crowd of people there to see Catherine's next feat. She was going to attempt 100 miles in 24 hours. The hall had been measured out. She would have to do 2,833 circuits before she finished. As the Auckland Star put it, this was, quote, a feat that had never before been attempted by any female inhabitant of our planet. They got the grand statements. The Herald was a little less deep in its analysis, reporting that, quote, her physique did not give token of much power of performance, but she was, quote, pleasing and of good figure. At 8:30 p.m, Catherine stepped out in her costume and began her race. As you can imagine, the crowd thinned out a bit. After all, she was just walking in a circle. For a time, a drunk sailor walked with her. By 6:30 p.m. the next day, Catherine was ready for the home straight. She had 2.5 miles to go. The hall was filling up again and a band began to play as she picked up the pace for her final laps. As she rounded the bend, the hats and handkerchiefs went up and the applause was deafening. She was, at that time, the greatest female pedestrian in the world. She was also my great-great-grandmother. And her signature is on that petition. Now, I'm telling this story not to show off my family's amazing sporting prowess. The legacy began and ended with Catherine. I'm telling that story because how many of our courageous but sometimes unusual stories do we know and tell? And do they always have to be great feats? Things that others have never achieved before to be remarkable or noteworthy? I don't believe they do. Sometimes stories of courage are simple but beautiful. The stories of Christina and Catherine may appear unremarkable, a woman who walks a lot and a stern teacher who became a lady principal. But give them a little context and they're not only remarkable in their own way, they are courageous. Within the ordinary sits the extraordinary. Each of the women who just got on with it has a story that can inspire us to just get on with it too. Kate, Christina, Catherine, Elizabeth, Mabel, Whetū Tirakatane Sullivan, Helen Clark, they're all part of a journey to equality that we're continuing to this day. The issues they fought for, economic independence, freedom from violence, equal pay, are issues we are still grappling with today. And like my great-great-grandmother, the thousands of other women who signed that petition, women today, are living their own extraordinary story. And it's to them that we owe progress. Ordinary women taking leaps of faith to fight and win battles, still for pay equity, against domestic violence, and for the right to choose to be a carer, to have a career, to be a mother, or all or none of those things. As we celebrate 125 years of suffrage, I choose to honour these modern, extraordinary women today by putting their goals and your goals at the top of my to-do list. There is enough power in those everyday leaps of faith to change the world. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.